Okay. Um, Let me pull up. Peter, I just want to double. Wait a minute. Can you hear me
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Something's happening. Can you hear me okay? For some reason, it was
Yeah,
echoing.
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. Okay, just wanted to make sure everything with tech was smooth sailing on my end. I am going to make sure that this is still co-host. Okay, perfect. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the village. If this is your first time in a while, welcome back. If this is your first time since last week, welcome back. Thank you for joining us today. Glad to see all the names and faces across our screens. Super excited for today's call. Want to give people a few minutes to come in and settle into this space however they need to. So please do not take the moments of silence as we are not present. Just want to give people some time to settle in and get adjusted into this space as they need to. And we'll get started in a few minutes. But thank you for joining us today.
Erica just left, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say those are fabulous earrings, Erica. Oh my.
Thank you very much. I figured they could make an appearance today if I was going to wear all black.
Amazing.
Thank you, Miss Ann. I took myself off screen to ask if you were going to remove the note takers.
Oh, sorry, I just realized I wasn't on mute, but I'm sure you heard me through the door. Yes, ma'am, I'm removing them right now. Okay, as I'm removing the bots in real time, so that is something that I will do. I will continue to do as the call progresses, but just wanted to, one, again, welcome you all into this space. Welcome to the village. If this is your first time here, um, nice to meet you. I am Shekinah Stacy, Program Manager. Our lovely Executive Director is on the call with us today, Erica Burnett. She is not on the call as of right now, but we also have our amazing capacity building senior manager, Morlinda Lattimore, who is our village team. And so if you aren't familiar with us, it is nice to meet you and thank you for joining us today. And if this is not your first time, good to see you again. Today, super excited for the call, but always just want to take a moment of brief pause. We know that we like to operate and navigate this space from a sacred place. We know that people are joining this call and transitioning from meetings, cars, all the things, and just always like to take a moment to give you all the space to kind of settle in and just be present, get present, figure out what you need. We often make the joke that sometimes for the first time today, this is the first time we have seen our faces on a screen. And so just taking a moment to give ourselves permission to settle into a space, to take a deep breath, if that is what you need, if that is just a moment of silence, a moment of pause. And just for one, thank you for showing up for yourself, for us. Thank you for being present in this space and giving yourself permission to be and do whatever you need in this moment to feel safe, to feel settled in. And just want to, again, thank you for joining us today. And so just want to allow a brief moment of pause for that. Thank you for indulging in that with us. Typically, for the sake of time, we will not be indulging in this today. But typically, as our kind of, it's been our icebreaker, and also just kind of our like level setting, just to see where people's headspaces are in. We don't have time to do it today, but typically I'll drop like a meme slide and just ask people how they're feeling today. We don't have a meme to articulate that today, but feel free to just drop how you're feeling in the chat if you need to. If you are just having a day. But you're excited to be here, no pressure, but feel free to continue on in with that spirit of just letting us know how you are joining the call today and how you're feeling today. Feel free to drop that in the chat. We still want to honor the moment of just knowing where our members' heads are at, knowing what headspace you are joining the call from, knowing how your day is going so far, just so that we know even for the next call if how and if what supports we can continue to provide as we continue on this journey together. While you guys do that, I am going to do a quick introduction for today's host because we are super excited to have him on our call with us today. We are, Peter, I know you just did the honor of pronouncing your last name for me. Would you mind doing the honor of doing that for the people on this call today, just so that they can hear it with their own ears and know how they how they can address you full name?
It's Peter Vielehr.
Thank you. So today we have Peter Vielehr on today's call, and he serves as the data architect and the analyst for the Office of Youth Safety. And in this role, he uses data to identify gaps in resources and supports strategies that increase youth safety and well-being. His background spans from public sector analytics to police accountability, applied research, consulting. Previously, he actually served as the lead research analyst on the Metro Nashville Community Oversight Board. He also served as the director of analytics for the Albuquerque Police Department, where he led analytics, working to support compliance with the city's consent decree. He also holds a PhD in sociology from Vanderbilt University. So if we have any Vandy alumni on the call, shout out to y'all. And from there, along with prior degrees from Vanderbilt, he also Worked, he also has a degree actually from San Francisco State University and the University of Colorado Boulder. Outside work, he enjoys family time, hiking, exploring new parks and greenways. So hopefully that helps y'all paint the picture a little bit of who we have on today's call. But please feel free to drop in the chat and get a little more familiar with our host for today. So from there, I know we also wanted to open the floor to Erica also to just level set us a little bit and to just help paint the picture a little bit as to why this call felt timely and important, specifically for the village and our members to just kind of hear these words and be a part of today's call. So wanted to open the floor for that.
Thank you, Shekinah. Good morning, everyone. Shekinah asked us to drop how we were doing, so that's what I did in the chat box. I'm sitting in gratitude for a yummy breakfast that I got to share with members of my team this morning, and thinking about how we nurture ourselves and how we make sure that we're able to show up healthy and whole, especially doing this really, really difficult work. Part of what I think about what sort of disrupts my ecosystem, but that is very, very present, one of those things that I'm able to identify is really my relationship with data, and historically, my community's relationship with data, my relationship in nonprofits and working with funders who have certain demands around data, the way data and statistics have been weaponized, and or leveraged in a lot of spaces. And so by way of sort of not introduction to Peter per se, but introduction to the understanding of a intentional relationship that we are wanting to curate amongst our village members regarding data, how we understand the information that our policymakers, that our elected officials, that our funders um, are leveraging, are using as inputs in various ways. So that is one of the I think opportunities for the village to make sure that we are upskilling and broadening our larger collective capacity by understanding data, understanding our relationship to data, how that turns into to narratives and storytelling, how depending on what is happening politically, we can leverage our relationship with data in ways that can help move along impact, right, in alignment with being responsive to how certain things are shifting around how we should and can talk about the issues that we know we are tackling every day that are very, very complex. What we also know is that data is going to include us, whether we volunteer for it or not. And so part of our goal as a body of the village is to bring us in closer proximity to the content, the information, the understanding that is driving decisions that impact how we live everyday life and how we're able to serve those who we are responsible for within our mission. So that's sort of one sort of big why for us. The other piece is Dr. Phyllis Hildreth has been such a critical, not only supporter, but thought partner in the evolution of the work of the village, and how we have seen and understood our own sort of leadership trajectory, but then also what's possible when working alongside government entities. And so Dr. Hildreth has been anticipating Peter's arrival on her team for a very long time. And what we are hoping is that this will be serve as another way to shore up that bridge, the bridge between a department that was created based on participatory engagement, right, with community members, a department that is led intentionally by individuals who have been at the epicenter of true community challenges in relation to systems. And so it is our responsibility to make sure that we are figuring out the best ways to collaborate, to learn, to exchange ideas and information. And so, Peter, I'm so thankful that you indulged me in such a quick turnaround after finally like putting all the pieces together. But I want our village members to really understand our why here, that it's more than just, let Peter share a little bit about what's going on. It's seeing and understanding the role of our systems partners and the systems players in the larger ecosystem that deeply impacts your work every single day. So, Peter, I'm going to turn it over to you. As usual, use the chat, y'all. Shekinah will make sure that we are uh, uh, responding and honoring any requests that are there as much as possible. But appreciate y'all being here. And Peter, thank you.
All right, thank you. Um, I appreciate that introduction. I will let you know I'm on sort of two screens, so I know my camera's down here, but I'll be kind of looking up a little bit because I've got higher screens with slides. So, but I appreciate being asked to come and talk to y'all and talk to you a little bit about the work we're doing in the Office of Youth Safety, as well as some of my passions and interest around how data can be leveraged for impact. So just a little bit additional background is, I am a sociologist. I studied sociology before I actually went to grad school. I worked in a nonprofit, an HIV nonprofit in Colorado, and was a caseworker helping navigate medical care for people living with HIV. And then, as I have gone through my career in graduate school, I've done a number of partnerships with nonprofits or other organizations doing more impact-oriented data projects. And so I think the one I'm most proud of that you'll probably know about was the Driving While Black report, working with Gideon's Army. Working on that really sort of changed my career trajectory, um, and pulled me out of an academic direction and actually toward really looking at how data can be used for uh, public policy, but also to really impact systems and change systems and uh, improve police accountability, police oversight. And that's been my career since then. So the last 10 years, we are coming up on 10 years since that came out. And my career since then has all been focused on more accountable systems using data. So uh, I'm excited to be back. And Nashville recently came back in January. I've only been with the Office of Youth Safety for 2 months, 2 months and a week, so not 9 weeks. So this is a pretty new area, but it's exciting to be back home in Nashville with people that I care about and a city that I care about. So what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to sort of breaking this up into two parts. I'm going to talk about a little bit about OYS and about the Office of Youth Safety, and then I'm going to jump into some of my thoughts on storytelling and how data can be used within telling stories. So about Office of Youth Safety. So the Office of Youth Safety was created by executive order by Mayor O'Connell, and it was also funded by the Metro Council. But prior to that, we had community leaders coming forward, and specifically youth community leaders, coming forward to get to demand, request, ask the city, and push the city to create a Office of Youth Safety to start addressing the issues around gun violence and uh, make the city a better place for youth. And so, out of that community-led activism, the Executive Order 53 came out from Mayor O'Connell, and sort of a key piece of that, it says, it's the responsibility of the metropolitan government to use evidence-based, people-informed approaches to preventing violence, particularly gun violence, while promoting positive youth development and fostering safe and thriving communities. So we take our charge from this enabling ordinance or executive order, and we sort of roll from there. And so so when we have when Dr. Hildreth has put together sort of the mission and sort of founding ideas of where we're headed over the past year. She was hired last year. She just hit 1 year with the Office of Youth Safety yesterday. So we are still a pretty new organization, and we've just gone to 2 staff. The Office of Youth Safety weaves existing Metro systems and services, supplemented by private individuals, organizations, and resources to create and sustain safe, viable community spaces for our youth's growth and flourishing as they progress from childhood to adulthood. And So this is really what's guiding us. And when we look at how we do this, we are guided by kind of the principles that are laid out in the executive order. So first is we pilot, assess, and promote programming to prevent conflicts from escalating into gun violence and equip youth with conflict resolution skills with a focus separate from the criminal justice system. So we're trying to look at those upstream factors that can influence gun violence, look at conflict resolution, and but keep that lens towards preventing gun violence. We use data and research to inform the metropolitan government's investments in youth violence prevention and restorative programming. We gather and assess how Metro government of Nashville and Davidson County departments can continue to build safer communities for youth in ways that reduce the harmful interactions with the criminal justice system. So we want to find ways that the rest of Metro government can support youth and youth safety without having to get to the criminal justice system, without having to rely on the criminal justice system as the main way that we think about safety. And then we support the development of evidence-based, people-informed anti-violence initiatives within Metro government departments as part of a comprehensive effort to promote youth safety and well-being. So we are aiming to really support Metro departments as they're thinking about anti-violence and think about how we build out those services in a comprehensive way. And my office also goes dark occasionally, so I have to put the lights back on. And then we develop relationships with leaders of existing restorative justice initiatives within Metro government, Metro public schools, and independent agencies, and incubate a restorative justice program as needed. So this is really about the relationships and partnerships both within government as well as with community organizations that are doing the work of youth safety and supporting them as we're able to within our mission and charge. So since I've come on, we've really taken this look at what is the data and how do we actually start thinking about how we leverage this to guide our mission and development. So when we look at our youth, we are looking at our youth who are 10 to 24 years old. This age range covers middle school through emerging adulthood. It's consistent with research on brain development and other research showing that all the way up through early 20s, young people's brains are developing, they're learning, and we are focusing on this range of emerging adulthood, right? So all the way from childhood at like early teens through early adulthood and that emerging phase. And this is about 130,000 youth in Davidson County living in 526 square miles. We have a large county and we have a lot of youth. So when we think about this population, we know that to meet our goals, we're not everybody is exposed in the same ways. And so we really think about how are people exposed to trauma, to have this trauma-informed lens of how do we help people or meet youth where they are, as well as understand the traumas that they might be exposed to. And so what we've done is really trying to think about what are youth experiencing. So we have 5 zip codes in Davidson County that have 54% of all fatal and non-fatal shootings that have happened in 2025 and year to date in 2026. And so this encompasses 27% of our youth. So about a quarter of our youth experience half of the shootings in their zip codes that happen in the county. And so we've mapped this and we've looked at the areas and zip codes that are our top 10, right? Our top 10 zip codes, and to really think about where we need to focus our energy and to be able to meet our youth where they are. And from there, we've really broken down into thinking about youth safety zones, as we're calling them, or youth priority zones, and These are based on zip codes, but modified a little bit to really incorporate the top areas where we see gun violence. And so we split those into 5 zones. Um, Within these zones, these are our communities that we're pulling together to really think about how do we envision our community spaces, understand Metro's resources across those 5 zones, uh, and be able to pull people in order to be able to do programming, ensure people across the county are receiving the resources that they need, that people across the county are getting the similar amounts of resources. What we've seen in other areas is that some parts of the county may not be getting, like some areas may get a lot of resources or a lot of attention from city government, while others may feel like they're being ignored or they haven't gotten the same level of attention. So we're trying to really intentionally break the county into areas that we can measure the impact and we can measure what we do, what city government does in order to try to improve outcomes in those areas. And what we found from these top 10 areas is that 40% of Metro's youth live in these 5 zones. So that is about 70,000 people, right? But this accounts for 90% of all gun violence are in these 5 areas. So that 40% of people experience 90% of the gun violence. And so really these are the areas that make the most sense for us to focus resources and use them both for guiding our work, but also holding ourselves accountable to the communities that these are the areas that need the attention and focus from Metro government's safety work, non-criminal justice safety work. So what do we do there? We are building out we're trying to work on building out our larger model of what this looks like, but we look at this from a protection, prevention, interruption, and repair. Protection in the sense that Metro government provides spaces that should be able to be protective of our youth, provide prevention, education, and resources when things are when there is a potential for violence, there's violence interruption. And then when violence does occur, that there's a reparative, restorative lens and process that can exist to help our community members heal and our youth heal and move forward. And Metro's role in all of this is to provide the third spaces, the outside of home, outside of school. Metro general government is providing those third spaces, the parks, the libraries, where our youth can play, grow, learn, and heal. And then within those spaces, provide some of the prevention, interruption, and repair, restorative approaches within them. And we see this as pulling in metro parks, libraries, arts, the downtown district, thinking about the youth safety zones as our unit of analysis around third spaces. And from there, we are being 1 year in, we're still early on in our process, but we are working toward ensuring that across these zones that we are activating all of these resources in order to improve outcomes and be able to reach our youth in those third spaces. So that's a story. So I told a Office of Youth Safety story. You may have caught that there was some data in there, but it wasn't huge. And so that's the piece around the Office of Youth Safety. That's what we do. That's what we're building. We're still building. We're going down. We're still on that journey, and there's more to come this summer, but that's still in progress. Where I like to sort of shift is kind of thinking about, this idea of data is beyond reporting. So what does it mean to actually do storytelling? And so I made this map as part of some of the work we're doing for our annual report, and I tossed it in here because I think it's an interesting story. And a map can show a lot. This is Davidson County, and this is the Child Opportunity Index, which is a provides national data on children's opportunity. And this is compared to the nation of across a variety of different dimensions. It brings in a lot of different information to create an index of child opportunity. And we can compare 2013 to 2023. And if we just take a look at the county, we have a lot of space in 2013 that was in the very low or low. That when we look 10 years later, it's shifted into moderate and high, right? So we see a lot more blue. There's very few spaces that went from blue to yellow or blue to red. So Davidson County has been making progress on having more child opportunities. There's a we can go real deep into it, but I threw this up at this point because I think there's a story, and I think we could tell a lot of stories about what this means, what it looks like. Um, but the story often is in that image of uh, there's just a lot more things that look blue. So to kind of set this up, stories, you may have learned this in middle or high school. I learned this in middle and high school. I haven't revisited for a while, but we tend to have a story arc. We tend to go from a setup, introduction of who the characters are, the context, the situations. We start the story somewhere. We have a rising action. Events build tension, complications, what's going on, and then we see a central conflict or tension, and then resolution. So we see the story arc across most stories that we see. I did not do great in English class. I did much better in math, but this we tend to see this story arc. And this is also what we do when we think about data and we tell stories with data is we start from a setup. We set up the story. What does our population look like? What does our community look like? Who are the players involved? Uh, what are the needs? We have that rising action. What are the conflicts? What are the um, challenges that we're seeing? And then what is the central thing we're trying to do? And so when I was talking about data for office use safety, I see the central conflict as 40% of our youth live where there's 90% of our gun violence. And so that is that central point uh, for me. And then thinking about now what are we doing about it is the resolution part. And that is a story arc that, you know, can be 15 seconds or it can be an hour long. So when I sort of apply this out to a more generalized framework, that might actually be that might be helpful for to think about. Um, Really, your story matters, right? How you tell the story, what the story is telling, it really does matter for not just funding, but for stakeholders, your community members, your partners, your staff, everybody sort of involved in the work. Understanding that story really matters, and data plays a role within there, really illustrating impact. So you can sort of think about what stories would look like with thinking about your community needs, right? Data can play a role in defining the problem that you're addressing. So what is the underlying needs in the community? What is the problem you're addressing? How many people are part of your community, your target populations? What areas are you working in? Those kinds of community needs underlie your are their starting point for your community, for your story. Your program work. So like, who are you serving? How are you serving them? What programs are you offering? That's kind of another piece that there's often data behind is sort of what is the program? What does it look like? what is the evidence for that program, right? So a lot of programs bring in a strong evidence base. And so being able to pull on research literature, randomized control trials, other information about programs, maybe not exactly your program, but um, similar programs around the country of what they've done um, can be really helpful. Your participant experience, not it's the how. How are you impacting your community? What do people think about what you're doing and the work that you've that being involved in your programs? What is their experience? Those are things that you can measure or collect data on. And then really, what is the measurable change? What changed because of our work? Um, that's a really important piece of like, what is the outcome that we're looking at and can we measure that? And all through here, you can think about all of these things connected to your funding and strategy. What support do we need? What are the gaps? What that we are not addressing? How do we then translate our existing work into future funding and strategy uh, asks and decisions and management decisions? All right, so I'm going to take a step back from sort of the overarching thing to really think like, what are data? When I say data, what do I mean? And I mean a lot, right? Most things are data if we think about them as data, right? So quantitative data is typically numeric, comes from surveys, experiments. Census data is quantitative. Different types of administrative data is usually quantitative. So most of my work has been on looking at police data or criminal justice data to understand disparities or um, accountability within those different types of administrative data. The vast majority of that is quantitative, and that feeds numbers. Qualitative data is can be almost anything, right? So you've got interviews, case studies, observations, photos, documents. All of these things are really rich qualitative data. I love seeing photos as just as being able to illustrate what people are talking about. Interviews, case studies. I love to, you know, hear the stories of people to understand that impact from a firsthand perspective. So what do they tell us? Quantitative data tells us how much, how many, how often, what changed. Um, these are really important from understanding scale and scope and impact, or like quantitative impact. So, what has changed over time. Qualitative data really tells us what did people experience? Why did it matter? What did they gain from it? What helped them? What barriers are people dealing with? And then leveraging those two pieces together, that's really how you can put together a story, right? Being able to say, here's here's some numbers around how much we've done, and here's the impact. Here's this person's story about why it's mattered. And that's a really important piece of that story arc. So I often take I think about data as a strategic asset. And so some of the work I've done in government has been on really trying to leverage how government uses data better. So more effectively to manage internal risk for the most part. So when working on police reform and the consent decree, we did a lot of work around how do we manage risk using data as our asset, right? How do we reduce the negative outcomes that come through policing, and that data is a core piece of that. Really thinking about it as a strategic asset. I don't think about it as just a hoop for funders, right? When I worked at a nonprofit, often sort of putting together our quarterly reports to our funders and for our grants, that was really the only time we ever really looked at data. And so we were not leveraging our data strategically. We weren't thinking about it as an asset that we could be using internally for our programs. And so there's kind of three ways that we can use it strategically. One is to prove. So I think prove, improve, and persuade, right? So we can prove and show what changed. We can prove what we're doing. We can prove to people. We can try to use our data to prove what we're doing is having an effect on our outcomes. We can use it to improve. We can improve our services to make them more impactful, right? So this is that internal facing piece of like, if we're collecting information from our participants, how do we then take that information and actually roll it back into improving our services, and making them more effective? Or if it's understanding the different parts of our organization and how well they're working, or um, though all of those pieces of how we improve our organizations. And then persuade. So how do we persuade our community, our staff, our funders that you're making an impact, right? Getting buy-in from your participants and your community, and your staff is really important, and data can be a really important one there. Funders is just one piece of it, right? Of persuading them, but really getting that sort of deep buy-in, data can be an important piece of that. So where do you sort of start? I start with the measure what matters, right? And this is really about your mission. It starts before trying to actually make a chart or quantify anything. It's really thinking about what data do we collect? What can we measure? What is our mission? Um, what are our needs? And what are the things that we can measure about what our community needs, what we're doing? So our activities. So how many sessions are we having? Our outputs, how many people are we serving? Right? These are the sort of what the things that we're producing. Are people served? Those kind of things. But then our outcomes those are the hard things to measure. Those are what we all want to measure is, all right, what is changed by somebody participating in our program? How do we actually think about what we're able to measure from there? We can't just sort of measure what's easy. We have to also think about ways that we can measure what's a little bit more challenging, and that's what those outcomes are. But all of this really starts with like, how do we align that with your mission? Uh, and then figure out from that mission, what are the things we want to measure? What would really help us understand what we're doing, how well we're doing it, and how well we're serving our constituencies. So it's really not just starting with what can we collect, it's about what do we need to know? And so what do we need to know to make the better decisions, and to know that our work is making a difference? And I think a lot about how do we align those to our mission and our audience, right? So, your audience is going to have different interests. Different funders are going to have different uh, ways that you would want to frame information. So your different stakeholders may be impacted by different types of information. Um, so then that, having a few different metrics across your mission that allow you to illustrate and tailor your story to your different stakeholders allows you to be able to um, tailor your information when you need to. So, good data collection is not about having the most data, it's about having the right data that you collect consistently for a clear purpose. So many times grants will sort of come across with like, you have to collect X, Y, and Z data. Um, that may not always be the best data or the best data for your organization. That's where it becomes the hoops, right? That's the hoops that you end up having to jump through for funders. But really, that to have it be the right data is finding out how it aligns with what your workflows are, what your mission is, being able to collect it consistently and know exactly what the purpose is going to be, and then really use it for that. The burden should be low, right? So I've been in a lot of situations where the burden of collecting data is very high, and when the burden is high on staff and participants, they don't do it. And then you have a lot of data gaps. And so I've seen this a lot where I worked on a project when I was at a nonprofit, and the funder came in with a researcher, and the researcher came in with like a 14-page survey that we had to give to our participants, and we had an hour session, and the survey itself took about 25 minutes. So that was not collecting good data. That was actually that the whole thing was a failure because we were supposed to be collecting, more almost half our session was just collecting this packet for our funders, and that's not effective. Keep it simple and easy to see, right? So it's really easy, and I fall into this trap all the time. I like data. I like analyzing data. It's fun for me. It's not fun for a lot of people, but um, it's easy to try to show too much. And so really figuring out how to focus on what's memorable and figuring out how that fits into your bigger story. So how does this one piece fit into your story arc? Um, that's kind of the hard part. And so it should work. And when you were able to drill down on those one or two really key pieces of information, that's where a one little fact can be an elevator pitch. It can be your 15-second elevator pitch to an hour-long talk. And so for me in this presentation, that 40% of our youth live where there's 90% of gun violence is my, one key memorable stat. But I can make that a 15-second elevator pitch, or I can give you an hour-long talk about gun violence and geography and inequality and what that means. And so that is the piece that you can stretch from really small to really big. I like to throw this in there because I have a PhD, and I was trained as a researcher. But when you're thinking about research partnerships, I think uh, there are ones that can be really helpful, and there's ones that cannot be so helpful. They can sometimes be extractive and not actually provide a lot of value to organizations. And so for me, I think about like, will they actually build your capacity or help you do your work better? um, who owns the data and who has access to the data. So will you get your own data back? And so one of the projects I worked on at that nonprofit, we actually never got the data back. And so the funder owned the data, they analyzed the data, and then they provided us with what they thought we needed to see. That wasn't a really effective way to do it. If you're entering a lot of data and you're providing staff time to do it, you should own the data. That is my opinion. But how much staff time will it take? Is it funded? Some research partnerships can be a lot of work for organizations, and they often don't provide that capacity building at the end. How are your participants feel about it? Is it going to build trust or not? Is it going to feel extractive or is it going to feel empowering? And so there's researchers that are really good about community-based participatory action research, and there's also some that may not really consider about empowerment and building up your participants as a research goal. And then how are results going to be shared? Are they just going to write a couple research articles that will be paywalled in an academic journal? Or are they really going to spend the time to bring that back to your organization, to your participants, to help build your capacity based on those results? Those are some important considerations when you're thinking about data, because there's a lot of researchers that will want to come and collect data with you that they will say will be helpful. And then finally, as you're thinking about data and what is collected, how it's used, ethics is really important. Protecting the people you work with is really essential. And so, we think a lot about youth and what youth data protection looks like. It's really important that you have a clear purpose in what you collect and why you're collecting it, and that you're transparent with why and how you're going to collect it, and that you're protecting privacy and confidentiality. So that's a really important piece. So finally, I'm going to turn back to this slide on youth safety zones and sort of, we put together, this is pretty simple, but we pulled a lot of data from across different metro departments to really come up with a data-driven approach to putting this together and really identifying out where do we draw boundaries? What are the important geographies? What resonates with people? Are zip codes the right way to do it? Are there other types of ways to break up the county to find that need? And this was sort of the core way that we really um, landed on to be able to try to tell the story of, Southeast Nashville as a community. And, when we are thinking about that, how do we, each one of these will have a story, and how do we try to break that down for that community? What are the community centers, parks, libraries, resources, the communities involved in those areas, the schools, the how do we pull all that story together so that we're able to help metro government build programs in all of these areas that can really resonate more effectively for youth safety outcomes. And so that's really um, what has led to a lot of these zones and how we've designed them. So just sort of in conclusion, tell your story, make it memorable, show your impact. Um, Collect data that will help you achieve your mission, shows your work, and weave in stories and examples to connect emotionally. Uh, I think that's a really good piece. Like, people want to connect emotionally to your work, um, and data is a piece of being able to do that. And so it's not the whole piece; it's a piece that helps drive home that impact. Um, so, as part of the Office of Youth Safety, we have a brand new website up. There's a QR code to our brand new website on the mayor's office page. We would like to work with more youth serving agencies. If there's ways that we can help or have discussions or be a resource for uh, even just thinking about what data is there, how we could help, please reach out. Through our website, there's an email to youthsafety@nashville.gov. And so please reach out, and we're happy to have those conversations. And if we have time, there's my light again. If we do have time for questions, I'd actually be very interested in hearing your elevator pitches of what is your 15-second elevator pitch, uh, that sort of illustrates, your mission and how data gets brought into it, or answer any questions, have more conversation. So thank you all for having me, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Peter. I do want to pause in case anybody has any questions. I'm also keeping an eye on the chat if anybody is unable to come off mute, but would like to submit a question or a comment in the chat, but do want to open the floor for those.
That was so helpful. Would it be possible for us to have your slides?
Yeah, I can send those over.
So I will get the slides from Peter, and in our next newsletter, I will make sure to include the slides, or a link rather, to the slides in our next newsletter. And Miss Ann, if you just aren't able to locate them there, I also can email them to you directly.
Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions, comments?
Hello, Peter. This is Patrice Bertrand with More Computing Learning Services. Thank you so much for that presentation. I do apologize. I came on just a tad bit late. Was there a certain age range considered for youth that we would service?
We are focused on between 10 and 24,
Okay.
so all the way up through emerging adulthood.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Any
So,
other questions before we move on?
I appreciate the opportunity to come and happy to have other offline conversations. I will drop my email in the chat as well. So if there's any other offline questions that you might have, feel free to reach out and we can talk more.
Thank you, Peter. I know we have many organizations, especially as we build kind of a recap of today's call into our communications. Our members are also able to recap the full video of today's call via YouTube and socials. And so we will be sure to just kind of continue to share out where they can find the updated website, get in contact with you for organizations who feel like there's some alignment there or just want to open the door for any curiosities that they may have with you in the Office of Community Safety. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'll be sure to stay on the call for anybody who needs to also capture Peter's contact information. And Peter, thank you for being able to join us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Moving on to announcements. I know we have a few minutes left on the call. Do want to just make sure that we are opening up the floor for anybody who joined the call and would like to share anything pressing that has come up for you, any events or announcements that you would like to share with the village. Please do feel free to do so at this time.
Good morning, still. Daryl Caldwell, Why We Can't Wait Inc. I have two. One would be CCM Leadership Academy is approaching ages 6 through 14 for our 8-week summer enrichment program. Mornings, left side of the brain, science, technology, engineering, partner with TSU's engineering department. We have math and ELA. Sports and fitness to cap the morning with that kinetic movement. Then following lunch, we go to the right side of the brain and we're doing arts and crafts, hip hop dance, African dance, drama. This year, photography and leadership development. We threw in a twist on Mondays. We're going to swim from 1 to 3. There's a college tour on Thursday, and every Friday we're going on a field trip out of town and locally. The two fabulous out of town field trips will conclude the month of June going to Kentucky Kingdom. A lot of parents are excited about that one. And then we're going to the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute in July to begin the month on a Friday. We are still getting daily parents in our but if there are those that own the village that if you have young people that are interested or parents that don't know where to go but are interested in the summer, we're operating from 7 a.m. To 4 p.m. and then we give parents until 5 to pick up. Just a fun-filled day, a lot of fun, a lot of learning. We're focusing hard academically, but then we hadn't forgotten the fun. So looking forward to an exciting summer. That's one. The second one is this is our 7th annual Why We Can't Wait Jesse May Caldwell Scholarship Brunch. And it features 10 graduates from the class of 2026 from the various schools that we know, the Pearl Cones, Whites Creek, Hunters Lane, Maplewood, Hillsboro, just to name a few. And not only will we honor those young people with a scholarship on that particular day, but it's matched by Fifth Third Bank. And it serves a dual purpose, one, to honor them and to give scholarships to those that have been in our programs, and then some haven't, but they've been acknowledged by their schools and they'll get this helping hand, first generation college students. Secondly, it's a fundraiser for Why We Can't Wait. So there's table sponsorship, and I will be sending my flyer to the village. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Caldwell. Can you remind us what age group the summer camp serves?
Yes, 6 through 14. 14, if they didn't get if their birthday is late and they didn't get a summer job, because we have, matter of fact, this is the last Saturday for the onboarding for the summer jobs, and we have 6 sites, 75 teams that we're putting to work at our 6 sites. So if their birthday comes late and they don't get a summer job, it's 6 through 14.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Any other announcements before we hop off?
Hi, good afternoon. It's Fatia. I put a few flyers in the chat on, although Arts in Antioch is not yet a member of the village, but they are connected through me. Arts in Antioch is hosting a couple of arts workshops this Saturday. One is on henna. Everybody get a chance to design and do their own henna. And then also we're doing a black light art workshop. Um, so the henna workshop is from 11 to 1. The black light art is from 1 to 3. And again, I did put the flyers in the chat. And then also on May 30th, we are hosting our third, or the World Africultural Community Project is hosting our third World Africultural Day. We'd love to have everybody come out and join us. Um, if anyone is interested in volunteering, or interested in being a vendor, I can share that information, the contact information for that. And hope that you all can come out and join us. Thank you.
Thank you. Super excited about that. Thank you for joining us today. Any other announcements before we hop off? I do want to make a quick announcement. I think she had to jump, but we have been building our Facebook group quite a bit into our comm strategies. And so I will provide the link to that in our newsletter. But if you are on Facebook but have not really engaged with the village via Facebook, we do have a platform, which is our village Facebook chat, where that is just another platform where if you would like to just kind of send in things that are happening in your community. We wanted to create a platform where we get to do that outside of just these weekly calls. And so that is the platform that we have been engaging in, not only where we can send you things, but you guys can also send flyers and all the things and be in communication with each other. And so again, I will include that information in the next newsletter that will go out. And so please just keep an eye out for that in case you miss a Wednesday call and would still like to share something with the village. That is the platform for that. We look forward to seeing you guys virtually next week. We are super excited about the call next week. Peter, thank you so much again for being able to join us today. And we look forward to seeing you guys virtually next week. I'll stay on a few minutes in case anybody needs to hop to grab anything off the chat. But thank you all for joining us. Be safe in the meantime, and we look forward to seeing you guys.
I have an announcement. Free Hearts has a summer bridge program from July. I put it in the chat from July 6th through the 18th. It'll be at the C.E. Magruder Center, and we are looking for volunteers as well to help out. If anyone's interested, they could reach out to myself. I could put my email in the chat, or they can reach out to the info at Free Hearts. I'm gonna put that in the chat real quick, and it's open to ages 5 to 15.
Okay, I see that in the chat, Jahara. I'll make sure if you can't join virtually next week because I think quite a few people have hopped off. If you aren't able to make it virtually to drop it in the chat next week, I'll make sure I share it as well during our call next week.
Thank you. I'm putting my email in the chat, but for some reason the Zoom link that I have on my Google Calendar is asking for a code, but this one it did let me go straight through. So I'm gonna just add this one to
The
it.
one that I texted you.
And I think this was been the issue every week, and I just now realized it. That's why I couldn't get on. I
Yeah,
think it
that's
was an old one.
maybe because the one that I texted you, I pulled it straight from our link tree, which is the same one that's like up on all of our things. So yeah,
That's weird.
make sure you update the link.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for joining us today.